This time, instead of dealing with historical incidents, I will explain about Japanese villages. It may not be very interesting, but I hope you will see it through to the end. Until just 100 years ago, more than 90% of human life was lived through agriculture. That is to say, villages where people farmed were all that people had. In the previous issue, I explained the history in rural communities up to the Heian period. It was also the history of the birth of the samurai. In this article, I would like to explain the rural areas of the Kamakura period. During the Heian period, the system of the emperor owning the land and the people, which mimicked the Tang dynasty's Ritsuryo system, virtually collapsed. A law enacted in 743 during the Nara period, under which newly cultivated land became the property of the cultivator, resulted in the spread of manors for aristocrats and temples and shrines throughout Japan. Aristocrats and temples/shrines with large amounts of money contracted influential local farmers to cultivate land and expand their own manors. In the Heian period, the leading farmers who newly cultivated the land were called myasu, which is to say farmers. Under this myasu, there were householders and servants who had no status and were as good as slaves, and the fields were cultivated by a small group headed by the myasu. They lived in the vicinity of cultivated fields. There was no such thing as a village, as we know it today, where people live in a densely populated area. Some of them took up arms and became warriors to settle water rights and land disputes with neighboring pioneer farmers. They looked up to those who would protect their rights as their chieftains. The Saiwa Genji and the Kamu Hishi are typical examples. In the 11th century, the samurai, who were derived from the peasantry, were often appointed as manor governors of manors or county governors of public domains, with their military prowess as a backdrop, and were responsible for tax collection, police, and court proceedings. In this way, the samurai came to the forefront of history in the late Heian period. However, they were still of low status. Even their chieftains, the Saiwa Genji and the Kandu Taira clan, were only low-ranking nobles who were off the track of success in the eyes of the central nobility. A samurai who changed this situation was Kiyomori Taira. He participated in the Hogan Rebellion and the Heiji Rebellion as the military commander of the aristocrats' political upheavals and won the victories. As the architect of the victories of these revolts, he became a major presence in the imperial court. Before him, warriors were of low rank and not allowed to enter the court. He rose steadily through the ranks of the imperial court and eventually became the head of the court as Grand Minister of State. The samurai had risen to the top of Japan. For the next 700 years, Japan would be ruled by the samurai. Kiyomori's biggest mistake was that he and his relatives behaved as nobles, not as warriors. He gave his relatives many chigyu-koku. A chigyu-koku is a system for giving real power of local administration and control to the local government and acquiring its interests. During the heyday of the Taira clan, much of the land in Japan became Taira chigyu-koku. Thus, Kiyomori followed a system of rule similar to that of the aristocratic Fujiwara clan. Such rule by Kiyomori was resented by many of the existing aristocrats and local samurai. It was Yoritomo Minamoto who stood up against such tyranny of the Taira clan. This Jinpei battle will be made into a video later. Yoritomo and Kiyomori never directly confronted each other, and Kiyomori died of illness. After the death of the great power Kiyomori, the Taira clan suffered a series of defeats against the Minamoto clan, and the Taira clan was destroyed at the Battle of Danuro. Unlike Kiyomori, who had become an aristocrat, Yoritomo Minamoto firmly maintained his position as a warrior chieftain. This is where he was wise. He did not move to Kyoto, the capital of Japan, but instead established a political base in Kamakura, his home base. This was the establishment of the Kamakura shogunate. From this point on, power shifted in earnest from the emperor and aristocrats to the samurai. During the Kamakura period, there were also technological innovations in agriculture. One was the spread of double cropping. Rice was cultivated from spring to fall, and nothing in particular was done with the land after that. In the Kinki region, after rice was grown, wheat was grown. This year-round use of the land deprived the soil of nutrients. For this reason, the spreading of fertilizers on farmland became a popular practice. Fertilizer was mainly human and cow and horse dung. They knew empirically that spreading organic matter such as dung added nutrients to the land, even though there was no chemical basis for this. Other methods included burying the grass in the ground to let it rot, or burning the plants and trees to ashes and scattering them on the soil. The advent of the samurai also had an unexpected byproduct. The equipment of a samurai is a sword and a bow. These are, of course, made of iron. Swordsmiths were developed to make these equipment. These would not be bought in town, but manufactured on their own, of course. This led to the emergence of blacksmiths. They not only made swords and arrows, but also produced farming implements. The production of iron plows and hoes became possible at low cost, and iron farming implements became widely used by farmers. As a result, agricultural productivity greatly increased during the Kamakura period. This created a surplus of production and economic strength in the society. Until then, peasant society consisted of slaves, such as householders and servants, working under the supervision of a powerful peasant, the Myasu. The economic well-being of the society as a whole provided an opportunity for these householders and servants to become financially self-reliant. The independence of the newly born peasants was also welcomed by the samurai who governed them, as it was synonymous with the creation of more taxpayers. Thus, in the middle of the Kamakura period, many independent farmers were born. Numbers are justice. Once a large number of independent peasants were born, what happened next was resistance based on numbers. The small group of classified peasants, with the Myasu at the top, came to form a medium-sized group called a village, where peasants of the same rank, but without class, united. They were called Sausen. Yes, a village was born. They went to the imperial court and the shogunate to file lawsuits against the lords who were harsh in their collections. They even went on strike, forcing all villagers to flee to the mountains and abandon cultivation for a certain period of time. However, they did not yet have the solidarity needed to organize an uprising against their lords. The large increase in agricultural productivity allowed for the existence of occupations other than peasantry. In addition to rice, farmers were able to earn cash income by growing wheat and eaglemout, a source of light. Handicrafts also developed, and the production of paper, raw silk, and cloth increased greatly. The iron smithing of swords and other items mentioned earlier also took place, and craftsmen emerged. Merchants selling these products also emerged. Regular markets began to be held several days a month in places with heavy traffic. This eventually transformed into permanent retail stores. Thus, in the late Kamakura period, places where merchants gathered on a scale that could be called a town began to appear. Such commercial development led to the development of a monetary economy. Before the development of commerce, barter was the main form of economic activity. The Sung coins imported from China came to be used as currency. With the beginning of the monetary economy, a variety of transactions became possible. It was during this period that financiers who lent money at high interest rates emerged. It was also during the Kamakura period that an exchange system using bills of exchange was established. It is believed that the first time notes were used for transactions in the world was in 12th century Italia. It is believed that Japan in the Middle Ages had a very developed economy compared to the rest of the world. As I have mentioned, the development of villages and towns is largely due to the improvement of agricultural production. This was largely due to technological innovation and the emergence of iron tools that could be purchased inexpensively. The first reason for the mass production of iron tools was the samurai's need for weapons. The Kamakura period is not a very popular period among the Japanese. This is because it was a time of too many purges. After the death of Yoritomo Minamoto, who established the Kamakura shogunate, the political leadership was taken over by the Hojo clan. a relative of Yoritomo Minamoto's wife. The Hojo clan destroyed all other warriors who had contributed to the establishment of the Kamakura shogunate, and the Kamakura shogunate effectively became the Hojo clans. This period in world history corresponds to the time when the Mongol Empire overran the world. This Mongol Empire would also extend its invasion to Japan. I will be making another video on this as well. The Kamakura period marked the beginning of the formation of villages. I believe that the nature of villages formed in the Muromachi period directly shaped the nature of the Japanese people as we know it today. In the next article, I would like to explain about the Muromachi period villages. If you enjoyed this article, please subscribe to the channel and click the like button.